Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sal Podcast, live here from Rome, Italy. Today we have in the control room, for the first or second time, black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, Francesco Amatucci. Francesco, how's it going?
Fine, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Very excited, as you can hear. And we have in our seat our special guest who came all the way from Berlin today here to be on the podcast. Kind of Dave Adam, ladies and gentlemen. Dave, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Good to see you again. It's been a long time.
Great to see you too.
Yeah. So, well, my name is Sal, and this is the Sal Podcast. Hit it.
Commercial.
I swear we have not been smoking yet. And, well, we have Dave here back. We've been knowing each other for a very long time. And I'm very, very happy that you're actually here today. I have a lot of questions for you. But first of all, what have you been up to the last couple of years?
Hi. I want to say hi to your listeners, and I wish you all the best for Christmas and for the New Year that is coming soon. And it's a pleasure to be here for the closing party evening for you. So thank you.
Thanks for the bottle of wine that you brought for the party we're gonna have after this.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, absolutely. I've been actually, I've been busy traveling, mostly Europe, doing music, writing songs, and entertaining people. Yeah.
Right. So you met in Rome. How long ago? 8 years ago? 7 years ago?
Yeah,
something
quite a
like
long
that.
ago, probably 8.
In a live music venue,
Mm-hmm.
which name will be undisclosed at this time in history. And we met there. We played a few times. You played a few songs there every week. Presented your own original music, and then you left and you went, I believe, to Poland, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but you're a musician actually from Georgia, not the country, not the state Georgia, but the country's Georgia. And so, what brought you to Rome in the first place back then?
So I got a background. Well, my parents moved in Italy when I was 17.
Okay.
So I actually moved to Italy with them, and then I spent like a little time with them, and then my father one day said maybe you can just go out and travel.
Right.
I was thinking about this, but I could never find out ways to go out and just.
Wait, your dad told you can go out and travel, so he basically wanted to get rid of you.
Yeah, he wanted to get rid of me. So he was
Empty the
like,
apartment.
he really, we don't talk much in general, but
Okay.
It's good that sometimes fathers can give you great advice, and
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, and if you're lucky to listen, then you come up with better ideas probably. So I went to I went to Italy when I was 17. Then I spent a little time with my parents, and then I moved to Rome. I studied in Rome a little bit, some music stuff, and then I decided to go to Poland, just travel, because my brother was that time in Poland for 9 months, and he said, let's go to Paul McCartney's concert, and I was like,
sweet.
wow, Paul McCartney has always been my idols, So I went there, and we went to Warsaw, city called Warsaw, and waited Paul McCartney to come out from the Grand Hotel where he was staying there, and there was like a bunch of people there, and I realized that time that this guy was so close, Paul McCartney was so close, but it was so hard to reach.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what is going on, So, because that's why musicians have this, like when they go to their favorite musicians' concerts, that's when they realize that this musician is not only for you, like it's for everybody, right? So then we went to Eric Clapton's concert and in Prague, and so my brother basically got me into the traveling mood, and probably since then I've been traveling and playing music wherever I can.
Right. Well, I remember that you went to Poland back then, and then a few months later you were on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so
how it happened.
That's quite remarkable. So what happened? What did you? Yeah, tell me a bit about how that what you did in those months. Why you were in Poland, and first of all, the language. I mean, the language alone must be very difficult.
Yeah.
Learning the language, getting around.
Exactly. Yeah, language is pretty difficult. If you have some, Slavic sort of language understanding, then you can possibly get few words.
Did you pick up some Polish?
I understand a little bit of Polish when people speak, but it's kind of hard to speak the language because, well, it's close to Russian, close to Ukrainian and all that stuff, but it still has, different pronunciation, so, and totally different grammar and all that. So, but English works, like people who travel, if you speak English, it works everywhere. So far, every place I've been, English works. Life got better. You don't need a lot of things to, have in your pocket to, talk to people and then get around the place. You basically, if you speak well enough English to communicate and explain people,
right,
you can travel mostly everywhere you want. Yeah, Poland is really, particular country. It has a really conservative, society, and girls are pretty open, but people and politics are pretty closed. So,
okay, open in which sense?
General open, like
okay.
For men, it's pretty.
Frank, you want to write that down, maybe, just in
yeah,
case.
you should go to Poland. Yeah. I mean, if you're feeling down or something, just go to Poland for a couple of weeks, or you'll be fine.
Okay,
you'll be fine for sure. Yeah, and then I went to Poland, and I've been doing some gigs there, like local small gigs. And once I was just outside, and I met one girl, and she was like, "Hey, you should probably go to the show," and I decided to, like, I didn't really listen to her much then, but then I was like,
just the show? Is that what you said? To the show, like?
Yeah, go to participate in the music competition there, because people will love you. And I'm like, I did not really think of that much that time. But then, I saw the, television thing, and then I went to participate, and I kind of knew that I would go to some level, but I didn't know that I would go to, like, semifinals, games and all that. So it turned out to be pretty cool for me. I went to the show and participate, and people heard of me and what I was doing, and they kind of helped a bit to further go on, doing music.
And the show is in Polish, I suppose, right?
It is in Polish, though it's the voice competition, so you got all the, British, American sort of background, which every country shares when they make voice competition. Right. So you have the same sort of plan and way to follow the structure of the game.
So the show is The Voice. So that's the name of the show. Yeah, it's this franchise that's worldwide, kind of similar format.
And I would say that I probably believe that mostly every country works almost the same, maybe little different things.
So where they sit there in their chairs that turn around, right? So they're not facing you, they're just listening to you first. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 people
listening,
in the
whole idea
jury.
of voice is that it's all about your voice. It's all about your abilities, not looks, right? So
right.
Well, I don't really know if people know you before you get and sing there. Like, maybe they know you, maybe they don't. I still don't know that, but I'm sure that they don't really have much of a sense who you are exactly and how you sing, because you only have one pre-casting before you go to actual main stage and sing in front of the blind auditions. So.
Okay, the pre-jury, I remember my sister, like 15 years ago, she went to something like that. The Voice didn't exist yet in Frankfurt in Germany.
Oh, cool.
And like the pre-casting there was basically, there was a few technicians, a jury was not the people on the TV, but there was some experts, and they would then kind of listen to you, and then if you pass that step, they would then invite you on the TV show, and then you would see the jury that also people see on TV.
Exactly.
But you have to wear the same clothes, and it's very complex process.
Yeah.
I suppose it's very similar with the voice.
Yeah, I think, one thing that singers and musicians going to the show mostly forget is that, first of all, you're going to a television programming,
Right.
which, you have to understand that programming and television, when you go to whole steps, it is really about building up the momentum, building up the whole process, and you are part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And probably musicians there who are participating there play, some people could say that it's a, it's a main thing, but as a musician participating in the project, you realize that how huge is this, and you realize that how many times they don't really care about you, or you have to believe that you're gonna go there, stand, wait for 8 hours if it's acceptable for you, and then go and sing. Because well, I believe if you went there 8 hour waiting and then you're gonna go there for 3 minutes singing, you're probably gonna think twice before going there. But still, once you're doing that and you sign the contract, you're gonna go and do whatever the television's gonna do. So one thing that is important is that you have to be like mentally strong to really understand the concept of television, because television, not only from the music perspective, but from a whole different spectrum, that every television thing works the same way. So there is a huge crew works for you, huge crew trying to basically build up everything, every possible thing, and it's pretty hard process, and it's hard to make it good. Not only your singing, but the whole scenario, that whole thing that's going on. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a lot of pressure for somebody who's there for the first time, because you don't want to screw that up. Because as you say, there's a whole machinery behind it. It's like dozens of people working there, from the camera angles to people in the control room cutting the right scenes in the right moment. Then there's still people backstage, I suppose, kind of taking care of you guys in the rooms, and the whole build up to it. So
there's a lot of crew, a lot of people working for so many different things, and it's cool because you see the insights of what's going on in behind scenes, right?
Right.
So you kind of got the idea. Some people freak out and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm the best, so I don't have to look at these people, or I don't have to, wait for 8 hours or stuff like." But at the end, it's a part of the story that you have to be there, and you have to support each other, and you have to do all that stuff, and then eventually, things gonna play good for you if you're mentally ready, if you're if you're accepting,
So how do you get mentally ready? Because now you're sitting there for hours. Maybe you're talking with other people who are also in the same room.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody points at you and it's like, okay, you're up in 10 minutes or whatever they say.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like, every competition. First of all, like, it's been almost 3-4 years that I did that. And
okay, so you did it before
I
somewhere
already
else.
shifted from like competition. I don't believe in competitions in general. Like even in the show, the time I was there, because I was just there for performance, right? So we just going there to perform. So unlike sport, it's actual. I would say that singing, you can always bring yourself in singing, right? In representing your art. But in sport, you can't. You have to compete. You have to beat somebody, right?
Right.
So there is no, there is a winner in sport and there is a winner in art. Everybody's winner in art, right? So everybody's winner who's got a good performance, right? So even if nobody in this voice or whatever in these chairs, nobody turns, like there was one girl, she's a friend of mine, and nobody turned for her, and she was one of the best singers, and she won that day, right? Because she didn't pass through the next levels, right? But she put her energy, she put her emotions, and people just loved it. They adored her. So that's the main point, that in music it's all about what you want to do, what you want to represent, and how you're impacting the mass, how you telling your story. And even if your story is, you know, short in that television or whatever, you're gonna make that, you know, impact. So
It's strange that we have this conception in sports where if you're the first, you're the winner, the second maybe, and the third also get the medal, and everybody else is kind of dismissed. But it's really the same thing if you think about it, because even the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, they've put years of training into their bodies, and their bodies are still a piece of art in a certain way, because, you know, somebody who runs 100 meters at that pace compared to us, like, you know, they are gods, you know. So in a way, if you are maybe into that sport, you appreciate it more if you understand that sport, how much work and craft went into this, and that it's really, really hard. So I guess if you know about it, you can appreciate even sportsmen and women more. However, with music, I guess it's maybe because music is more easy to understand for people, or it speaks to them more directly as sports. So maybe that's why we can enjoy the music, even if it's not the first, the best, whatever. And best in arts, it's very a subjective thing.
I think you're right. I think I want to point this out. Like, at the end of the day, all the competitions suck, because like you competing with yourself, right? So if you want to do whatever, if you want to do martial arts, if you want to do music, if you want to do anything you like, at the end of the day, the whole concept is you're challenging yourself,
right?
And with competition or without competition, the main point of competition, or main point of doing what you're doing, is all about taking yourself to the next level.
Right.
And the competitions are only for 1 day or 5 days or 10 days, right? So the rest of your life, it's all about what you're doing. So if you're a musician and your only life experience or dream was to go to some music competition and become a champ, you suck. Like, if you're thinking that that's life, then you're gonna be 100 times backwards. Like, life is not a competition. And only thing that, probably many people said that before me, but like, only time you're competing is when you're competing with yourself. And then even in sports or anything, at the end of the day, it's your life. It's the process of your life.
I suppose if you see the competition as the end goal, that's where you go wrong, because the competition is not the end goal, but the competition, I think it's
never been the start, and it's never been the end.
I think a competition is useful, but only for just, you know, as a milestone, just to see, okay, where am I at? Yeah. And where do I have to improve?
It's a one-dimensional where I'm at, right?
Yeah, it's to measure something.
It's not telling you what you're capable of doing, right?
Right.
So what you're capable of doing is when you come out and create yourself in front of the people, and you are sort of a person who can build up a real version of yourself with or without any competition. So if you're who you are, and if you keep doing this, many people, you know, fall into this, like, they want to be like famous or whatever. But like, what's important is you're doing what you're doing, and then if you're good at marketing, or if you're good at other things, if you think that your values that you build are important for people, then you can market it.
Right.
You don't need all these shows and all this, you know, people judging you for crazy. You give yourself in front of the judgment, and that's for many people it's hard, you know. But like, you know, I've done many things. I've done this and I've done that, and I can say that for me, competitions are fun, but that's not life. That's not real life experience, and that's not all the work, as you said, you put in yourself to, you know, all the everyday work that you put for so many years. You know, you have so many things to do, so many ways to explore yourself than competing with somebody or for some, you know, something.
I mean, a competition is a stress test, because the environment is also different during a competition. I mean, it's a bit different than for sports than it is probably for music, but when you have competition, there's a stress factor, so your body already reacts different. So it's good in a way because you also have to get used to these stressful situations in life. But yeah, it's just a milestone, I suppose. By the way, before we continue, we have a few people here commenting, like Luca Nozza, official. He says, "Hey, my homie Dave." We have Gabriele. I wouldn't know how to pronounce the last name. "Hey guys, nice to see Dave again. Nice to see you too." Gabriele says, "Competitions really suck." And Peter John Joda, intern Peter approves. Peter, he used to be the intern here, and he used to be in the control room before Francesco here took over. By the way, for everybody who's watching for the first time, you can leave a comment, and if you have any questions for Dave, you can write them in our YouTube comment channel, comment box on the right side, and then we'll forward those questions to Dave. Then I saw you also a few years ago actually, during an event I really like. It's called TED, and TED I think stands for Technology, Entertainment and Design. And they did the first TED event I think 3-4 years ago, also in Rome for the first time. I went instantly.
Nice.
Or 5 years ago. It's really nice. And I saw that you went to a TED event. Not sure, was it
in Krakow?
Okay, very nice.
A Krakow local event.
Okay, so how did you get into that? Because it's a very prestigious thing to do. That not everybody is being offered to play there. So did you just knock somebody's door and be like, "Hey, I'm a musician. I would like to play at TED"? Or did you even know what TED was before you went there?
Yeah, this story of TED is pretty funny, and it starts from it starts with the story with Umbrella Story. Okay, because I was in the main square in Krakow, which is the most beautiful, main squares in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to rain so crazy, like it was crazy rain, and I was without umbrella, so it was like, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe something like that. And so I was stuck in this arc which you have to pass, and then there's a huge place where it's just like there's no cover. So so there was this girl who had the umbrella, and she was like 50s lady, but she was like 25. And I said, maybe less than 25. So I said, like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, can I come with your umbrella and just walk the street?" So she offered me umbrella, and then like, we spoke a bit. We had some wine and coffee, and then I went home, and we just got contact. And then a year later, she just texted me back, and she was like, "Hey, you're the musician. Like, you want to come and join the TEDx?" Because she followed my music right after, and she liked my music. Well, obviously, you're not offering TED music, for everyone, probably, right? But like, I guess she liked my music, and that's so. Many times just show up and talk, solves things.
Socialize, right?
Exactly.
But she was working, obviously, she was in charge of
I think she
selecting music.
She worked in TED, TEDx.
The organization.
And, they have selections where, like, who's going to play there, who's not going to play there. So probably they collected a bunch of musicians and, chose 2 or 3 musicians.
Right.
So probably are three musicians.
Okay, wow.
So 2 were local from Poland, and I was the one foreigner. I was lucky because they sometimes invite. So my friend who's from Rome, he's a best friend of mine. His name is Paolo. He's a great violin player.
He was the one playing there, right, with you? I saw
exactly,
that.
Yeah. So we've been friends for a long time, and he's a best friend of my brother. So I said, "Hey, let's go to play together," and he's got this theater right next to his place where he lives. So we practiced a bit, and then we just went to the theater to play.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I'm glad he accepted it, and even though we didn't have much time, we just played a bit, and it's fun. Got a good audience there, and
right.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Do you still get nervous when you are on a big stage like that, or on TV? Like, I suppose the pressure is a bit higher too. I mean, both was on TV. I think both was taped by cameras and everything. So
yeah, it's always you have some kind of, everybody has this television thing,
right.
if you're not running one, then you're not, if you're not worried on technical stuff, then artists mostly, yeah. I'm kind of a person who knows what he's doing, but at the same time, I want everything to be, organized. So if I go there and something's wrong, well, I have to switch then to improvisation, right? So I don't want, if I'm not ready to improvise in certain ways, because I like improvisation, but it's unexpected improvisation.
But when you already prepared element to be
exactly.
for improvisation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it happens when you're like, something's not working, and you're like, okay, you switch to it. That's another skill, I guess, to be able to talk to the audience.
I think that's something you learn in Italy, to improvise in unexpected situations.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Exactly. In Italy, always. In Georgia, always too. We got similar things, like in terms of, because Italians are probably still more organized than Georgians. Like Georgians are still less organized. So we, like, yeah.
Survival experts.
Survival experts.
So is there anything that happened once on stage that really caught you unprepared, and you had to improvise to get around it? Like, what's the worst thing that happened on stage?
Worst thing, worst thing that happened, probably my voice. Maybe sometimes, sometimes the voice gets crazy, but I always try to warm it up.
Right.
But I'm not like
cracking, or what happened to the voice, or just not getting to the peak where you wanted to get, or
it always gets there. The thing is, like, I pre-feel it. How do you say? Like I feel it. My voice is not gonna go there.
Okay.
So, or I skip some things which people. I'm trying to basically do tricks that people can't understand, but it's obviously not what I want. So
okay, but so that something
I always escape somehow.
All right.
So that's probably why I don't suck too much. Yeah.
But it's always mostly in your own head, isn't it? Because the audience very often, I think 99% of the cases, the audience doesn't even know if some problems happen, because it's also an art form, I suppose, just to keep the cool for the outside.
Exactly.
While in the inside, 1,000 things are happening in your head in that moment.
It's crazy. It's a crazy way to, especially when it's live, and you know that it's going to be recorded and it's gonna stay there. You better know what you're doing, because if you're not knowing, even if you improvise, like improvisation, let's say in other musics, right? Like mostly, you get jazz and all that stuff. People who play jazz, they know. Probably they kind of know what they're gonna play in this frame they have. They go sometimes, improvise, but they have this structure in which they play.
Right.
So they run different notes and doing all that stuff, but they know what they're playing, even though they know that note is not gonna be mistaken, because it's gonna be okay within the thing. So that's you. Oh, but the thing is, you gotta. I mean, the technical mistakes are different, but then like mistakes, you gotta make mistakes. If you're making mistakes on live, I don't remember, some artists said before, but really wisely, that's important. If you're not making mistakes, it has no real vibe of live, right? You gotta do some mistakes. You gotta, you're gonna feel the audience, and you're gonna do things. It's not recording. It's not MP3, right? So
exactly, yeah. I mean, you see that on the news every now and then, that some artists, they fall off the stage, they slip maybe and break their legs or whatever. The very, very famous instance was, I think, the guy from the Foo Fighters.
I heard something about him. David Grohl.
David Grohl, right? He broke his leg.
I heard this. I don't know.
On stage.
I don't want to say fake thing.
No, I think he broke his leg.
On the stage.
He was removed from stage, and then he returned afterwards after they fixed up his leg, and he continued the concert sitting on the chair with the paramedics around, kind of holding him or something like that. I'm not sure what exactly happened there, but
me neither. But
it was a few years ago.
Grohl could have done this. it's possible.
So
yeah.
I'm going to ask you in a second, Frankie, also to get you into the conversation. What's the worst thing that happened to you on stage? But before, I'd like to remind our viewers that we're live on YouTube right now, so you can actually ask your questions. There's a box on on my left side, or on your right side, where you can ask questions for Dave, or me if you want to, or for Frankie, by the way, who just got his black belt in Jiu-Jitsu today.
Wow, congrats,
and
man.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done, Frankie.
Thanks a lot.
Also, if you're here for the first time, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Every subscribe counts. We really appreciate it. We're going to upload this also on Apple Podcasts afterwards, the audio version on Spotify and all the podcast channels. So if you want to listen there or re-listen to this conversation, you can do that there. Okay, so Frankie, what's the worst thing that happened to you on stage? You've just been recently to Ireland, right? To play piano there.
Yeah. I was there. It was a weird project. I mean, very interesting project because we were there.
Did something happen there on stage?
Not to me because, I was with my friend Mark Walsh. Maybe one day he'll be here as well for a podcast.
All right, we should invite him. He's an opera singer.
Of course. Anyway, we played for people, old people with affected by dementia, something like this. So it's very interesting because you can entertain people like them who have problems, who probably are alone, don't have a family there every day. So it's very interesting. I don't know which is the worst thing that happened to me on the stage. Maybe I tell you once it happened something a bit funny, because my drummer left his crash. I mean, the crash, is a piece of the drums.
Right.
The crash. So what happened is that this crash fell on me. And I was almost out of the stage.
You almost fell off stage.
Yeah.
Because you were sitting on your stool because you're a piano player. For everybody
in that
who
case,
doesn't
I
know.
was sitting on my standing sometimes because I was using the synthesizer as well. And so it was easy and in a way, but it was hard because I didn't interrupt the performance.
You did not.
I did not. So it was like, oh, go on. I jumped, and then I jumped back to the stage. So it's been in
Sounds
a way
like classic Frankie, yeah.
Yeah, it's my class. So I don't know if this is the worst thing. I would say for 10 seconds it's been the worst. Then at the end it's been something just weird, like
all
this.
Right,
so
all right.
I'll tell you something worse later on if it occurs to my mind. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Cheers.
Okay, let's see here. In the meantime, Gabriele wrote, "We are all too unique to be compared with each other." I think he refers to what we talked about before, the competition. By the way, thank you for doing, guys, what you're all doing. Greetings from Lithuania, okay? Then Luca, he says, "You play live to make mistakes." And then is Torresa Mossi behind it, whatever that means, or whoever that is.
Friend of mine.
It's a friend of yours. Okay, maybe that was meant to be tagged or something. Okay, all right. Very good. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about, things that happened on stage. The TED, you went to the TED performance. You did the TED performance. You went on TV for The Voice. And so now you moved to Berlin, you told me, right?
Yeah, I recently got there.
That's cool. So this summer?
Yeah, I was in summer and then,
You decided...
I've decided to move there a bit, A good thing about traveling, though, is that every place you go, you understand that it's all about you, where you want to stay, where you want to live, and what's your... Like, when you travel, you understand this beauty of choosing the place you like the most, right? Because every person is different and every person likes different places.
Right.
So if I listen to my parents, they say like they like different places. They could never live in a cold spot, right? But I like places where, it's more live. It's more some things are going on all the time. So it's cool to go and explore and see which place fits you and then decide where you want to stay, because it's so easy to travel today and it's so easy to decide where you want to be for so many different reasons. Some people travel for tax reasons, some people travel for relationships or other things, but I've been in different cities in Europe and I realized that all the cities have different niche and it's beautiful to explore them, and as long as it's good for you, go and see it, experience it. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to be in Berlin, but it's a beautiful experience since I moved there, and it's been pretty awesome. Yeah.
Okay. So you consider yourself still traveling, or are you also considering settling down at some point?
Yeah, I think this 2020 I'll probably stay in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
As I've been working with my songs right now, and I met a cool guy called Harald, who's doing good stuff. He's a great musician, great great engineer, and he's got his own label, and we kind of work together to come up with my songs, and it's pretty cool. So probably this year I'm gonna be in Berlin, and invite you there to come once, and
Yeah, I think I'll be in I'm gonna be in Berlin a few times this year, so I'll definitely call you up. So, what's your approach then to songwriting? Like, is there a structured approach to it that you always use for every song that you write, or is it kind of a collection? Some people collect ideas here and there and write them down, and then later on they sit down and kind of reprocess or process them and transform them into something else. What's your approach?
Cool. I think my approach is mostly because I come from the guitar player background, so I play a lot of guitar, and I've been doing this since I'm 14. So I usually I sit in my room or somewhere where I travel, and I take my guitar, come up with the melody, and add on the melody. So I add always on top of melodies the lyrical part, or I write a melody and then at the same time I write lyrics. So I kind of build it up together. But many times if you're a musician who's oriented more like a melody stuff on guitar, then you feel like I want to sometimes finish the song, finish the music, a melody, and then I will write something on top. So it's kind of like varies in between those things, but I like the idea that lyrics can be sometimes leading, sometimes lyrics can define the song. And songwritings, you have different ways, right? Sometimes like songs are lyrical, and Bob Dylan and all that stuff. You need like lyrics and powerful stuff. Then you got Sting that plays a lot of melodic stuff, and maybe words are like not too I don't know, crazy or touchy or whatever. Sting's got good lyrics too. It's more like music gets you in, right? So if you take Shape of My Heart or songs like that. So I come from more of a melody, like from Sting. I don't think my lyrics are like too deep, or I'm trying to, but yeah, that's mine. But how about you? I know you're writing songs too, and how are you doing?
Well, the way I do it usually is the process is mostly the same. I usually start with the lyrics first, and then as I go along, construct it together with the guitar to create a melody around it. Sometimes, if it really hits me and I have a melody in my head, I'm gonna kind of mumble the melody on a recorder or something so I don't forget it right away. Then I listen to it later, and then I see if I have some lyrics left over, because then I collect them, and so if I can recycle something maybe that fits that, or if not, but the melody is really strong, I kind of write on top of it, and so it kind of forms and reshapes into something hopefully complete. And if I manage to record it before I lose interest, then it's a song. But very often what happens is then I get to the end of it and I'm already bored by it by the time I get to it. So that's a common problem I have. But so what do you think then about a completely different style of music, which is very modern music, let's say, like Justin Bieber or something like that? Because very often, Frankie's laughing, nobody can see that. But, very often there's not really any, like the lyrics are very superficial. Primitive, non-existing, whatever you want to call it, repetitive. It's like, it's not really there's not a story being told. And very often it doesn't have to be too. I mean, it's about the fun, whatever, dancing in a club. You don't want to go too deep into, what do you think about that kind of music though?
Well, I think that entertainment in general is a big spectrum. So if you take Justin Bieber and musicians that like singers, or that are like a massive, they have massive like reach in the world, because Justin Bieber is heard everywhere because they got a big promotion going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you take Rihanna for instance. Like I like Rihanna personally because she's good. I personally think that they play different markets.
Mm.
They play a different market game, and what I mean by that is that back in 80s, 70s, or 90s, right? Well, though even though like some bands were reaching the mass, music was not as reachable as it is today, right? Today you have the most impact, and some music which people might not consider music, still changing people's lives, still making people entertained, and so people are still happy, and if that music was not there, they might feel down or something, right?
Right.
So I don't have anything against people playing music. A lot of people have different opinions, like what's good and what's bad.
Mm.
But I think we're living in a world where there's so many music, so many things going on, and well, it's up to you which music you choose, and all these entertainers that might not be even considerably musicians, right? Some people are singers, some people are just entertainers, or all together, right? So it really depends on what you mean by that, but at the same time, if you understand that there's there's no such thing as bad than violence, right? So if you have music that can touch somebody, that's good, that's great, right? If you have better music and if you know how to promote it better, do it, right? That's the thing. It's hard to reach a lot of people, a lot of mass, but many times we're not able to represent our voice and come up and say something that is that people can hear. But many times it's also because we're not able to reach as many people as we can. So stand up, come up and saying your things and what you're thinking and show up and doing all that stuff. It's important, I guess. So yeah, I think every path has different. Every genre has different paths. So every as you grow up and you realize that I come from a background where a lot of musicians were like, oh, how dare you listen to light rock or pop rock or
Right.
something, right? Because they were so narrow into the music field they were going. So 90s, a lot of people had this thing, right? Oh, I only listen to Megadeth, or I only listen to like Bob Dylan, or I only listen to Beatles or Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd had a big thing, right? So it's funny when you look at it from now. Like every music has their own people that are entertained. Well, Beatles did, in my opinion, very very different impact, meaning that people from entertaining, which jazz was for entertainers, like jazz was played in small clubs, and it's always been the music that's been playing in the small clubs, and people were dancing on it. People were dancing on rock and roll and jazz. And then Beatles came out and they filled a stadium, huge stadium. I mean, people were going there to listen to the music. And I think from that moment, people were not only being entertained and dancing on the music, but they were also listening to the music, right? Listening what lyrics were meaning, right? So if you go back to Baroque's era, like where classic music was played, music was only for rich class. So being able to listen to a great piano player, because there were not many at the time, it was it was something, it was, you have to be some crazy guy, like rich guy. And then music shifted to the era where music was for everybody. So it reached the regular people, and then people came out and realized so many things because of the lyrics, because of the things, like take Sugarman, right? Sugarman's impact on South Africa. It's crazy. Many people don't know about it, but like,
Wait, the
That's
Sugarman, that guy who was from Canada or something, and when
he
he
was
was very
from.
old, they rediscovered his
I
music or
guess
something.
yeah, he was American, but probably originally from South America, I guess. Yeah, but he wrote crazy great songs,
Mm.
and then in South Africa they copyright like they didn't have copyrights back in days. I mean, it didn't work because like they were copying the songs, right?
Right.
So they were actually, they spread out these songs, and then there were a lot of changes happening that time in South Africa. So people basically loved Sugarman, and
Hmm.
he was probably more popular than Elvis there, and Beatles, right? So that time in South Africa, Sugarman was a huge thing, and then um, what happened is that he was 70 years old or something when the journalist from South Africa discovered him, and then basically he told about the story that everyone loved him in South Africa, but he sold zero album in the States. Though the label thought that he would be like the next Bob Dylan or something, right?
Hmm.
So that's why it's a great example why I don't believe in copyrights.
Mm.
I don't believe in copyrights personally, and I think that once you publish your music, when it's public already,
Hmm.
there's it's for everybody. It's available for everybody.
Okay,
So
that's an interesting thought.
yeah. So I personally think that the impact that you can make with being open source and telling everybody, being public
Mm.
and giving your information public, that means that you're giving people free information so they can grow, they can learn from it. It's a data. Music is a data.
So once you created the music and published it, basically people should be able to do with it what they
Exactly.
want.
In my
Okay.
I personally think that not only music but every information, if you take music as a sort of information or data, whatever
Hmm.
you can call it, it's a way to let people have more freedom.
Mm.
So if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're really worrying about people, you don't have to worry about copyrights. You might have to worry about nobody coming into your house and stealing your piece of art before you publish it, right?
Hmm.
Or stealing in house, right? But once you're publishing it, it should be for everybody. It
Mm.
should be for everybody to learn from it. Imagine if there is it's a good parallel between Justin Bieber and that what I said before, that Justin Bieber reaches people that probably never even had television, right?
Mhm.
In some like African countries or places like that, and where people don't even can hear music, but they hear right now something, and they can change their lives. They can do music, maybe
Mhm.
wrong music, but who knows? But like, if you were able to reach them, then go for it. But at the same time, if you're able to create value and you're publishing your value, then shutting things down because your value is reached out to people and benefiting people,
Mm.
it is absolutely nonsense. It's you are making world a worse place once you're trying to take what you created and
Mhm.
say these people don't deserve to learn from it.
Okay, let me back up a bit because my brain is working a bit slow, so I want to make sure I understand this properly. So basically, once somebody wrote a song, you feel like everybody should have access to it, no matter
Yeah.
what. Do you also believe at the same time that those artists should be able to make money out of the music?
I think that they should make money out of it, but when it comes to like cases where like I monetize my song,
Mhm.
right? I publish my song and I monetize my song, and then there's a certain areas that these things work, right?
Mhm.
But then somebody from Russia or somebody from Asia copied this song and made advertisement on it or made whatever fuck they wanted, right? So they probably took this song and then you know they put somewhere, but it doesn't matter where. Like some people listened that music, some people did that. Or if you take a software that lets you record the music, so Cubase releases the software, or Pro Tools releases software, and you're downloading this because you're able to pay because you have money and you're respecting the people's work that are out there, right?
Mhm.
That's great, and I appreciate that. But some poor people in Eastern European countries or other places, they have tools to download that software
Mhm.
and probably make a record that can change people's lives, right? So they might create song because they didn't have a dollar in their pocket, so they can actually download this free software from whatever tracker that is, and then they can actually create something that is valuable for people and then can change people's lives.
Mhm.
And this is, I think, and if you can't do anything about it, that you're dumb. Then you're dumb, right? So if you're like, if you can't, imagine like if you cannot take money out of other people's, uh, other people's work. Oh, okay, let me say one a different way. If you publish something and somebody takes that idea and sells it to somebody else, right? It's something like, say, I created a glass, and then somebody else made a copy of the glass and sold it. So in my opinion, it's the same kind of thing, right? If people believe that this art is yours, they will still appreciate you and they will still buy from you. So people who are thinking that way, they will always, they will always come and get your product because they have the trust and they know who you are and they appreciate you, right? But other than that, doing complaints and spending probably a lot of money which you could have actually invested on doing more projects and more products and creating more music. You actually spending all of your time getting somebody, putting your hand in somebody's pockets. So I would say that it's a sensitive topic that
It is, yeah.
artists want
Right.
to defend their art and all that stuff, but really, like, why artists making art if they are defending it? If you're going public, then you have to be able to understand that people are learning from it and people will learn from it, and even if you don't want, they might steal those ideas and apply for themselves to become
Right.
better people. And if you think that you're creating value out of it, then you don't have to worry about it.
I mean, I agree with the software analogy because that's something I come from an IT background, so it's very easy for me to kind of comprehend that. And I kind of feel, I kind of agree that I think if people don't have the money, but they download a cracked version of Photoshop or whatever it is and create some beautiful art pieces, or they can get work with that. Eventually, later, I think most of them, once they really make real money, are gonna buy it professionally. Very often, I think that's what people do. So you kind of put the trust in the user's hands. And so with the music, I think it's very similar. Somebody who really is a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, like myself, as most people know. I would probably buy most of the albums myself. Have something physical in the house,
Yeah.
Whereas other people might just download the music, but they weren't going to buy anything of him in the first place anyway. So in that way, it's this arguable what is theft and what is not theft, right?
Yes.
Now, putting myself though in the shoe of the artist who wrote a song. Now, if I write a song, I publish it. I'm just wondering. Of course, I want to sell as much of that music as possible if I want to make a living, because I need to make a minimum amount of money to have peace of mind so I can focus on other projects, because I have to pay rent, I have to have a family, it needs to be fed, and whatever you have to do in your life. So how can you kind of guarantee a minimum of protection of your art on one hand, whereas on the other side not going too crazy about litigation if you use the same bass line that I used and I want to sue you over that because you use the same bass line that's obviously mine in your new piece that's a completely different art, completely different song.
I think
it's a small line, I think, right?
Yeah. If you are ready to create art and then try to every single day chase a man who's gonna take the art and basically put it into something else or create something else out of it, then well, do it if that's your passion to do it, like to defend your art. Then yeah, but I think art doesn't need defending, right? In my view, I don't think that what I create or what I say needs to be defended, because art is free speech. And if you say something that you think that it's valuable and other people then copying it and they say, oh, I said that. Like if you're saying a phrase or sort of smart thing and then other people repeating it and they calling it that I said it, what's wrong with that? Like, I don't care. I said it. The reason I said something is not because I want to prove you that I'm smart. Is because probably the reality that I believe, I wish that people had that reality if that's the case. So I don't care what I say or what they say. If you are all about for free speech, then free speech is not only from the art perspective, but it should be free speech from every dimension. It should be monetary free speech. Everybody should be able to trade whatever they want to trade. They should be able to pay with whatever money they want to pay if another person accepts it. So you travel in the world right now and you see that they have a monetary war going on. So every country defending central banks defending themselves from monetary attacks, meaning that if people want to accept in dollars in Europe, you can't, because you have to accept in euros. Why? Because there's a supply that goes back in the central bank, so they can make sure that they have circulation and not the money don't go out. So or people are not, they call it like money laundering, right? Or things like that. So
Bitcoin is very much under. That's why Bitcoin, for example, is not really welcomed.
Yeah, so that's why, like, if you take Bitcoin or any other thing, it's a way of free speech. So if you're a person who thinks that free speech is not welcomed in any ways, then you are putting yourself in a cage, and they're closing your eyes, and you're not seeing what the world is doing, right? So it's all about choice, I think. But if you're gonna do that, and if you're gonna go that way, then the world is gonna change, and the world is not gonna accept what you're doing, because the world, you're not gonna accept, but world is gonna accept anyway. Like, you are closing yourself from all these things that are going on, interesting things are going on in the world. And if you take the human history, you realize that everything that people know is because people are collecting some kind of data, and they are learning from their mistakes, and that's how we progress, and that's how we differ from the rest of the animals that they can't learn, right? So we were able to somehow collect the data, and imagine if everybody tried to protect their own data, then and not publish it, right? Then we would probably still be in the Stone Age, because otherwise, then everyone would say, I want to keep my wealth here, and I want to keep my art here. I want to keep my free speech inside my house. Then there's not development happening, man.
Sure, that's the whole concept of standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, basically, what every generation before us learned and tried, we kind of take that and transform it. And so, in a way, we are already reusing the data and transforming it continuously.
Yeah.
By the way, for everybody who's just started watching right now, this is the Hey Sal Podcast. You can leave questions for our friend Dave here, a musician. He's also an activist, we learned, right? Or you come from an activist background anyway.
Yeah.
And we have Frank today in the control room. He got his black belt today. Hey, Frankie. So just to take that example, we can broaden this out in 1,000 different ways. And I think, as you said before, we come from a libertarian background in this kind of way. You view the world. But just to take the money example, and we're just wondering, maybe we already tried different things there, and it's just a commodity that we decided now we have euros here and dollars in the States and whatever it is in other countries, just because it works. Because nothing is gonna stop me from saying, hey, you wanna buy that computer I have in front of me? Just give me a few dollars and you can have it. Like, I can accept dollars if I wanted to. So then we have this free trade between the two of us, because we both decide, okay, or I have a cat at home. His name is Monster. It's a black cat, very cute. You're gonna meet him later. Let's say, okay, I want the hat that you're wearing and maybe the guitar you have outside. I want to trade it for my cat. If you accept it, we have a trade. So in a way, the society is not really limiting us to doing trade between ourselves. Now, it can be a commodity that I say, okay, I want euros because I live in Italy right now, in Rome. And so the banks, it's going to be easier to put it on the bank. But nothing's going to stop me from accepting other money. So I think the money example is just a thought I had at the moment. There's not really somebody of stopping me from doing that. The only thing I have to do is in the end of the year show the government how much I made. So if I was paid in cows and cats and this and that, I have to transform it into euro, convert it into euro at the end of the year.
Well, that's right. Though I would say that once you're traveling, you realize how hard it is to transfer money from A to B. So if you have more than $10,000 in cash or $15,000, I don't exactly know the limits in the border, you're not able to transfer cash from one point to another, right?
Right.
And then, well, if you have a credit card, credit cards, but then you got huge fees, right? So there's so many, like, by limiting people with trading whatever currency they want to trade, you're just making things more expensive, right? So you have more, well, in places like Europe, well, euro is accepted, right? So you can accept every place you go. But then, you have to, pay taxes. You have to, if you pay taxes, I'm anti, I don't like.
Unfortunately, I do.
You have to pay. Some people pay taxes. So,
right.
I say that if nobody paid taxes, we would have a better world. In my view, that's my view. But
that's gonna open a whole other conversation, probably.
But I think monetary freedom, along with musical freedom or anything, it's all about allowing other people to have same amount of free speech as you have, like, because we are all taking things for granted, and we all like to take things for granted. It's not a bad thing, as long as there's a source that we can get that idea, there's a source that we can learn from it, then why not? The thing is, there are still countries that are doing worse than Europe, right? Then they're limiting more freedom. But the freedom,
there's plenty of them. I mean, people complain here a lot, but Europe is still one of the safest and most advanced countries in the world.
I think exactly.
Continents in that case.
Exactly. So I think the reason why Europe is so free is because of so many different things that they got in the first place. So now it's freer than many other countries. But well, if you had more monetary freedom or more, probably borders are also kind of like borders pretty open in Europe, inside Europe. But you see the problem in Italy, for instance. Like, I see this problem of immigration in Italy, and it drives me crazy, because like, the reason why so many problems are created, but it's because of the huge bureaucracy that is in Italy,
right,
that is not allowing people to give identification, but instead what they do, they subsidize those people who don't have IDs. So they don't primarily giving people freedom so they can be identified and do whatever they want to do, so they can be, as a law, they can be equal for everyone, so they can start a job, they can learn things, and they can work on the market, right? But instead, they waiting people, and they don't give them IDs, so they're not really able to express themselves. So you don't have to subsidize those people, just give them IDs. It's as simple as possible, but this ID process is so crazy.
I think it's crazy on purpose, partially. I think it's a planned project. I think they're hoping that they can just sit it out and then just send many people just back. I think, and then also I think they have some shady dealings with some of the places where they leave them that make money for that, and so they also try to drag it out as long as possible.
Yeah, so these markets are monopolized. So
Right.
you have monopolized markets that people are making extra money. But what I say is that Italians don't have to pay taxes to subsidize these people.
Right.
What you only gonna do is that if these people are not gonna leave, well, if the country and government treats them like animals, then yeah, you can send not criminal people back to if you decide so. But I think that if people are deciding to come in any country possible and live and make their lives better, they should have a right to do so. And if they are coming here to stay, only good thing that you can do for them is to provide them with IDs so they can, without you paying taxes, go and find a job
and participate in the society.
Exactly.
Right.
But then Italians won't complain because they don't pay taxes for them, right? Now they complain. Otherwise they wouldn't complain, so they would not feel unfair because they don't pay taxes for them to provide shelters and Wi-Fi's and food, right? So what you're gonna do is to allow people to be at the same level from a low perspective, and then you don't have to pay so much money to create all these little structures in bureaucracy that eats all the money, and then creating bigger and bigger structures, and then they just eat all the people's money, right? So yeah, that's what I think about this problem, because it's a huge deal, I think. And well, criminals, like people who come and do criminal activities, then country can decide what they want to send them back, or but if you're not doing anything wrong, and the same people, like Italians were immigrating in the States back in days, right?
Still today.
So everybody, immigration is a natural process.
Right.
And then I thought about this example in my head, that imagine this room, there's like max 20 people can fit in this room, right? And I think humans are rational beings, right? So if you're trying to put here 100 people,
some humans are rational beings.
Yeah, some people, but I think the really small percentage, right? So if you imagine the room that can fit only 20 people, and then you're opening the door and you see hundreds of people are coming in the room inside this place, right? Don't you think that if you're with me that most of the people are rational, don't you think that people who are rational would go out of the room so they can breathe better air, so they can say, well, here's too crowded, I will go and breathe outside. That's what happens everywhere you go. It's a nature. It's a nature of human being that they are acting in a decentralized manner, and they basically do decisions by themselves, what's best for them. So if there's a place with 20 people that can't fit 100 people, there will never be 100 people in the room, because it's just a nature that it happens. People are not choosing to kill themselves. Most of the people are trying to find solutions to find better places for them, right? So many people in Italy, I find that they don't like Italy, so they immigrate. So they go other places, right? Doesn't matter where they go. They go because they don't find themselves comfortable here. And even in Poland or Germany, England, wherever you go, you see people are always individually deciding where they want to go. And I think that it's their choice to do so. So if we are allowing more people to do whatever they want to do, world would be a better place.
Well, I partially agree with that, because I believe very much in personal responsibility, and I think that's very much what's also at the center of libertarianism, generally. And so I suppose people who move away from here, from Italy especially, are those that are thoughtful enough to assess their situation, be like, shit's coming down here, I want to have a better life for myself, I want to improve myself, I want to get something better maybe for the people I love, and so they make a rational decision and then act on it.
Yeah.
I just wonder how many people really have that capability. I mean, there are a lot, but I think a lot just sit it out, just complain. There's people who do, and people who just, complain. And it's, I think also some topic that comes up in the podcast very often. That's why I always try to invite also people who have some interesting story to tell and who have thrive in life, who have some kind of, because there seem to be people that have this kind of drive to always try to change something, improve something.
Exactly.
And I always wonder where that comes from, but not everybody has that. Like, I agree that theoretically, if you're rational, you see that you're better off outside, and so you will go outside. But unfortunately, I think the reality very often is not that. I think that a lot of people, the biggest chunk actually is that part that will just complain, but not know what to do because of a lack of imagination or culture or whatever, or because I don't even know what the reasons are. Some people can't afford to leave, or they're just too afraid.
Yeah. Well, it's still their choice. Like the thing is,
that's true. It's their choice.
The great thing is like
So
everybody can do whatever they like.
And choices have consequences too. So
exactly. Yeah. I
right.
Not everybody has to travel, and not everybody has to stay.
Right.
So the thing is, until I was 18, I never thought of traveling that much, right? So, and you know, then I went to one country, like I went to Poland, and I went to some other places. I traveled over 30 countries, and then I realized that none of the places are the best places to be all the time, right? So you can always go somewhere else where there's so many great things about different countries, which means that different countries give you different types of freedom. So if you want to do one business there, you can do one business. Then you can go somewhere else and do something else, right? So at some point, the point is that are we limited technically to do so, or are we allowing each other to travel or not travel and experience things that we want to experience, right? So my view comes from the idea that the more choice we allow people, the better we're going to be, because people are doing rational decisions for themselves. And if we're trying to teach people or give directions to people, they will always end up in worse places, as metrics usually say, because that's how it works in the world. Like if you're not deciding how you want to deal with yourself, and if somebody decides on your behalf, then most probably you're scared, or you don't understand who you are, or you're lost, right?
I think it's just in human nature to want to protect yourself.
Exactly.
I think it's just a very primitive, strong protection mechanism that we have. It's very funny, actually, just as a quick parenthesis. Very often immigrants, when they are leaving, they want to access the other country, so they're all for free movement of peoples. Very funny though, once they are in there and have kind of settled down and maybe became a bit successful, they're actually become more conservative about it and actually don't want other immigrants to follow them. And then they kind of very often shift their idea about free movement and then become protective themselves. So it's a very deeply enrooted human thing, I think, to want that protection. So how would you overcome that? That's a very big challenge, I think.
I think protection and protection, defense, everything has a cost. So the question is, do you want to pay a lot to have a protection and to have a defense for yourself, or you want people to pay it for you, right?
Okay.
So I personally think that if you want a protection and defense, you have to earn it. You have to pay for it.
I agree with that, yeah.
So if you're going to do that, then go to a place where you think that is most comfortable for you and build your own place where you be the most happy, right? So I don't think that people have to pay price for your protection and for your defense. And it's very individual. So I personally don't want to live in a place where I have 10 lockers in my house. I better live in a place where my house is open, so I'm sure that people are still not going to steal anything, right?
Go to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if I find out that I'm in a reality that I don't want to take my ass off and go somewhere else, and there's a bunch of, thieves out around, right? Then I have to make a rational choice. So maybe I'll go and buy more defense for myself, for my family, whoever I want. But there's gonna be always better places for certain things, and it's all about you to decide. Not like we're not gonna, you know, tax or invade other people because you subjectively think that somebody's gonna rape you or somebody's gonna do something bad for you, right?
So are you a libertarian all the way through till the bitter
I don't
end?
think I'm too. I don't think I'm libertarian like to like a as a sticker kind of thing. I think
Okay.
I
You
personally
tend towards it.
I like freedom, and I like
Right.
more like multi-dimensional freedom. So I try to understand what the heck is going on with this.
Because
You know?
the hardcore libertarians, let's say, they would also not pay any taxes on police and fire departments, for example. So there are actually parts in the United States where they were having a fire department, like fire security, is a service that you pay for individually.
Yeah.
And so
Privatized.
right, and so if there's 3-4 neighbors next to each other and one does not pay for it and his house burns, the firefighters will arrive and just stand in front of the house and make it wait until it burns down because he did not pay his monthly fee or whatever.
Well,
Unless
yeah,
unless the fire also puts at risk the houses of the other people around him, then they might put it off.
Yeah, the question is still about choice. I think I personally think that everything could be privatized, in my view.
And I'm not saying, by the way, it was not a judgmental comment. It's just
Oh, sure.
it's just an observation.
I think personally that if you privatize things, you give individuals in your country to have more freedom. And the reason why is because you're not taking extra money from the people that never ask for something, right? So if I never want to go walk or drive on the road, why would I pay for the road, right? So road example is a bit complicated too, but like you have to have a choice to pay if you want to pay for church, if you want to pay for your security or anything, because
Right.
as I said, securities or anything is very personal. So we're gonna be in the world in future, in my view, where people will have a choice to go to places where countries offer more freedom. So they say, hey, come with us. We have financial freedom here. You're gonna pay zero tax or on your capital gains or whatever, right? Because I think that I believe in a system where people should be rewarded for what they're doing,
Right.
not extorted.
Right.
So I think that the way that today most of the places anything operates is to extort people, and it's to take away people's freedom. So in that case, police, football team that is subsidized by the government or anything you can take, it's all taking people's freedom because people didn't ask for it. Like,
Right.
would you ever go to a public concert that your local government made if you don't have money to feed your kids? Would you ever even fucking care about the concert, right? But if some musician came in your country and there was a private company who made it, they paid for it, they paid for organization, all the costs, you decide right now if you want to go and see the concert or not, right? But like, why the heck a poor person on the street would pay for something when they go and pay VAT tax or any tax, right? For you, a little mid-class motherfucker, to go to and see this public concert. Why? These people don't have money to afford to buy their kids shoes, right? So, and a lot of people don't have money. A lot of people don't care about concerts. A lot of people don't care about anything because they are poor. First, when people are poor, they have to feed their kids. Once you're not poor, then you go and see concerts. Then you feed yourself with art. But, well, there's a case that artists might be poor too, right? But it's all about you at the same time. There are examples. But the thing is, consumers, usually, they want to first survive. Once you survive and you're not starved to death, then you can go and see concerts, appreciate art, pay the musicians, pay the software, people, and for what they're done, right? It's great. I think, everybody who has money to pay for softwares, they should pay for it. I paid for it. The point is that once you get to the point where you're able to pay for, any service that you want to consume, it's great. But like, I don't think that, people that don't need things and they basically give them in their mouth, like, they don't need it. You just like feed them with information and things that they don't need.
So he's talking about wasting basically resources for something that not everybody needs. But what if it would be something
wasting their resources?
Right. But what if it would be something like a program for poor people where everybody pays into something and then those
goes to the poor. I mean, the thing is, I'm all about transparency. Like, if a program is transparent and open and everybody can see it, like, many people are comparing Scandinavia and Italy, for instance. Like, they have almost similar systems. Like, they're semi-socialist, whatever. But Scandinavian people are more transparent. They are showing everything what they do. So people are trusting their government, even though they're spending too much.
Right.
So like, I think that there's so many things that people are paying taxes for, like wars, gun trades, trade wars. All these things, if people didn't pay tax, we would pay way, way much less right now. So this little tax that is like for helping, poor people, that's beautiful. If people need money, you're going to give them money and they're going to go and buy food. You're not going to provide people for, like whatever tools and hammers and things like that if they don't have anything to build, right? First, once people are not hungry, then they're going to do other things. So I'm with you that if there will always people who are going to need help and who are going to need money, and we can support them. I'm not for the idea that, all this taxation goes to, all these wars, gun trades, and trade wars, as the States doing with China. And do you think that the United States trade war with China is good for the States? It's actually worse, because the farmers there are actually, suffering from, high equipment cost. So they are paying way much more money to basically get more equipment for their fields and places where they work. Right. So it's all affecting your people, actually. By closing trades, by, producing wars, globally affects you badly, because so many people's lives could be saved and so many people could live and create value when you destroy them, extort them. And especially places where these people are so dirt poor. Like, how can you actually defend yourself if you have $0 in your house and you're actually going working in your fields, and now there's like a huge giant airplanes coming and throwing bombs? Like, this terrorist like nonsense bullshit is actually created by these major strong countries. So they are actually creating these terrorists, and they then attacking the innocent people to gain resources like oil and all that stuff. So then they can actually control people more and more, right? But what if people stop paying taxes? If people stop paying taxes, automatically governments wouldn't have money to subsidize wars, right?
So you're talking about the rich countries now stopping paying taxes, the people of the rich countries.
Yeah,
because I suppose the poor people in the countries,
they still don't pay tax, right? So if people in the rich countries stop paying taxes, what would happen, right? Central banks would disappear, so they would not be able to lower interest rates, as right now the US is doing, lowering interest rates. So what happens is that you have quantitative easing. I don't know if you know that fancy term, that basically they're printing a lot of money, and banks are first who are getting that money, right? So what happens afterwards is that money goes into the economy, and people who held dollars, right? And most of the people hold like less than $10,000. they get poorer and poorer because the purchase power of dollar goes down, right? So this central planning of money system and monetary system is gonna destroy the planet. And this is happening every day. It's happening in Venezuela. And it's happening everywhere, where you take the monetary system and you take free market out of the monetary system and put the central market. So when the central authority is deciding the interest rates, that's when the shit happens. So if you imagine people stop paying taxes and using alternative currencies to not to pay this, then wars would stop. World would be a better place. Then people would have better choice to save their money, and we could all decide wherever concert we want to go, and we would pay for it.
But how would the wars stop? Because if you stop paying taxes from one day to another, wouldn't like madness and anarchy break out everywhere?
No. If you're a person who believes that vast majority of people are smart and individual and they want to save their ass and save their family and feed their kids, then you're at a good place because you're not brainwashed. But most of the people are brainwashed and they think that they think what television tells them. You know what? Like many countries telling their own local citizens, don't travel to certain countries because it's dangerous. It's bad to go. But once you go there, you realize how beautiful that place is and nothing dangerous happens, right? So, like countries locally brainwashing people to believe certain things. So they basically raising their childs with myths. So they let believe the myths, these kids. So when they grow, they think that they have to defend their country with their guns. So what happens then they're sending to the missions, other places, defending their countries and destroying the planet. So then taxpayers pay taxes, and all this money goes to, trillions of dollars are going to, all these
Wars,
missions.
sure.
They're going, right? So
Right.
if people stop paying taxes, what would happen is that tax that goes to subsidize wars would be gone. So people would actually not be access to get that money, politicians mostly, right? And then make whoever that decision-making person is in the head of the governments around the world who are making all these wars. They would have no ways to actually make implications on that, right? So they will be powerless. And
But they have the military. They can put a gun to your head and be like, "Give me
they
money."
have a military, but military needs money.
Right.
You have to pay you have to pay soldiers. You have to pay people to eat food, right?
But wouldn't
So-
also the whole healthcare system in every country that has a healthcare system just crumble at the same time?
Yeah, but you can privatize healthcare.
Right.
Because what happens now, most of the countries you still have healthcare that protects people, where you have like 6 months of lines, basically, if you need any help. So because it's monopolies created inside the healthcare system. So what happens is that certain companies, they're close to the government. They're basically, getting these people in the healthcare who they are close to. So what happens is that they paying a lot of money. They bring these companies in. They monopolize the system. So now you have higher price and worse quality you can ever get.
I believe that I also think that probably there could be made an argument for privatizing healthcare.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. I just wonder if it's something that the whole idea is would stand the test in the real world, because it would probably the requirement would be that 90% of all people would agree on this system of not paying taxes. Yeah, privatizing. I mean, privatizing, you can pass laws and that can happen also without having such a majority. But not paying taxes, that would be an effort that everybody would have to do at the same time, and we would also have to agree on what would be the actions after we all stopped paying taxes. So if you say we want to dry out the government from spending that money for military, okay, we all stop paying taxes, we agree on that.
You're not gonna. I mean, governments are not gonna let that happen. That's
No,
the thing.
of course not. Yeah, sure.
You gotta keep that in mind.
Right. That's what I mean. Like,
If
how
people
would you?
individually start paying taxes, This is the only way that it can happen.
Right.
If you and I are not gonna educate ourselves and understand how to play with the currencies that can't be taxed, and then save assets
Like Bitcoin, for example, which cannot be taxed.
save Bitcoin, save gold,
Right.
save assets that can't be taxed by the government. So
I think in Italy they also tax gold, I think. Right.
yeah, you can they can tax everything basically, right? So
Bitcoin they can't tax because you don't never know how much you have because it's encrypted.
well, you can actually
not
track
allowed by law,
Bitcoin.
yeah.
Really?
You can actually track Bitcoin.
So you can know how much you have.
Bitcoin is public, so you can track all the transactions, but you can choose alternative like Monero or coins that are actually have multiple different inputs and outputs. So
Are you into the whole encrypted?
I am a little bit. I know a little bit of things in that case, in that field, but the whole reason and whole concept behind choosing your freedom is allowing yourself to have buy more freedom for yourself. Because imagine war happens. What happens when war happens, right? If you're a musician, well, you have to stop doing music. You have to serve, because your country is, doing whatever they want to do. You have to be with them, or they might cage you, right? Some places it's like mandatory. So, well, that's the thing. Like we've been through all this like for for centuries, right? We had accounting systems. I don't know if you heard of accounting systems where kings were actually deciding who owns what, right?
Right.
When king was deciding who owns what, you had first entry accounting. Then you have banks right now who are assuring different space, like who's what, right? So you have bank transfers and all that, which is second entry accounting. And then you have third entry today where everybody in the room agrees what's the truth, because we believe that humans are not gonna lie.
Right.
Because I personally think that if we put data and everybody looked at the data, it will be less corrupted data than if two people look for 100 people, right? If two people look at data of 100 people, they would be probability of 98% more then this data will be corrupted. That's how I view it, and that's what I believe personally, that most of the people want to do good. They don't want to kill people. They want to go out and do whatever they want to do and create value for themselves.
Right.
So I think that that's what matters, and that's if we support that by educating ourselves in how we can make impact and how we can, give ourselves more freedom, so we can create the world in which we're not killing each other and we're not doing wars and all that stuff. I think that's the world I want to live in, and it's a big challenge. And I think that if more people gonna know ways to defend themselves and protect themselves, first of all, that's how we're gonna win over the systems.
I mean, in the end, I think it comes down to personal responsibility again. I think a better world is a world where everybody recognizes their own role they have in the world they live in, and I think the only way to solve that is by taking on responsibility for your actions.
Absolutely.
Not sure if everybody is ready to take on responsibility for their own lives. I'm a bit more pessimistic in that regard.
Why?
I think a lot of people just need to follow somebody. They want to follow somebody. They don't want to turn on their brains because it's easier. It's simple, It's like there's this guy saying that, and I just follow that.
That's voluntary, though. Like it. What you're saying is that everybody at some point follows somebody. The question is it my freedom to not follow somebody? Do I have a freedom to say no? That's the thing.
Sure, the
if
freedom
you are
is there.
able, if we can ask ourselves, do we live in a society where I can say no to every person possible and have my own freedom still, right? Or I can say no to the government and have my self freedom too. And I can say no to any entity and still maintain my freedom. If your answer is yes, then you're living in a great place. Well, I think that literally every country you go, you're gonna face problems that if you're gonna say no, there will be people with guns knocking on your door and saying, "Hello, we're here to take you out because somebody said so, that you're doing something harm which you never done, by the way. You just did what you did, no harm to anybody. You just decided not to give attention to somebody, right? So we have the world where they force you to have attention on them. They force you to come up and defend things that you don't want to defend. And they tell you things that you don't want to repeat. So if we ask fundamental question to ourselves, what's freedom? For me, freedom is free speech. And free speech is coming from my ability to say no.
So would you say that then today the freest country in the world is the United States?
I don't think United States is the freest country.
No? Which one would you think is the freest country right now?
I think that there is no free country. Almost every place has their own problems, and every place's people are not free, right? So, by the way, there's a futuristic country concept that I met a president of that place. It's in between Serbia and some country right there, and this place called Liberland.
Okay.
So they are trying to claim this place so they can make a sort of a liberal state. And
Liberland.
Liberland, yeah.
Liberland.
Liberland.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's gonna play out. How if they're gonna get support and approval from many different countries, but I hope they do. But I think that asking which country is the most free is, I would say that we are free or not, right? People are free or not. Individuals, if you give yourself freedom, if you're an individual who think that freedom is important, then country is not important for you either. So if you think that you want to fight for freedom, then you realize that there are no borders. If you realize that you want to fight for freedom, you understand that there is no immigration, there is no, there's no closed trade, there's no, copyrights, there's no whatever. If you want to not limit yourself, then it's up to you. You can use your mind and use it for your good, right? For your development. So, yeah, that's what I think.
All right. Well, guys, if anybody has a question for Dave, it's the last chance now to ask the question here on YouTube live in the comment box on your right side, ladies and gentlemen. We're already over an hour and a half in this podcast episode.
Great.
Frankie, is there anything you want to add?
No, it's okay. Very, very interesting, this podcast, for me, for you as well. So don't have question now.
All right.
It would be a lot, but
any other topics we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
It was great talking to you guys.
All right.
Really cool.
All right then, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last podcast of 2019. We'll see you again in 2020. Thank you so much, Dave, Adam, for coming on this podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was a great conversation, man. I wish we had another 5 hours, but we got to keep on going and try that bottle of wine.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, please please have a happy 2020. Enjoy the next year. I hope everything will work out well for you. If it's the first time you're watching or listening to this podcast, consider subscribing. We always appreciate that. Thanks to Frank in the control room today. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, happy 2020.